We are live, pals. Doubled your Tuesday been so far?
This has been a very good Tuesday. Actually, today was a very productive day for me.
So you're talking about work-wise.
I'm talking about work wise. Yes, yeah. It was not a taboo Tuesday. I'll tell you that.
Well, based on what I know about certain things about your job, that's probably a really, really good thing.
You know what? I should do an event called Taboo Tuesday. You just sprung my marketing brain in.
There you
What was
go.
the gimmick behind Taboo Tuesday? What was it? Do you remember?
They just created matchups, or possible matchups, and you fans could vote to pick the person who they wanted to be in it. But they would make the person who they wanted to win the vote like look really good, and the other people who they didn't want to win the vote, kind of look
Look,
not great.
look
So
like crap.
they could, yeah. But and in some cases, from what I remember, the person who they did not want to get chosen got chosen, and they had to run with it because they said they wanted
Yeah,
it to be
I don't know
legit.
why. I think was it Piper? Something happened. There was like a match. I remember, right?
Yeah, they brought back some of the older guys, and you had to pick. It was like Flair and Piper. So yeah, I mean that those pay-per-views, because it was the way that they did them, and I think they were on a Tuesday as well. That they just a lot of that stuff. I was like, nope, you're not going to get me
Yeah.
to buy this one. All right, let's start with we had a very heavy wrestling week last week, and a pretty good Monday Night Raw. But before we get into
Yeah.
all of the wrestling, there was a story that I had asked Dave about on Friday. And the story was that Ari Emanuel was at Bloomberg Live, hosted by Lucas Shaw. And I really wanted to go to this event until I looked at how much it cost to get into the event. And I was like, I guess it pays to work for a media company to go to these things, because it was like $1,000 or something to go
Wow.
to this event. But I mean, it was awesome. Like, if you saw the speakers and everything, and you're doing what we do in this space, I mean, it would have been an amazing time, I'm sure. But Ari Emanuel's on stage, and he talks about the TKO and Endeavor situation. They talked about the stock being down, and he had a few ideas. And one of the ideas was because of Saudi Arabia getting involved with the PFL, and the idea that
Huh.
Saudi Arabia just has unlimited amount of money. And I think the Wall Street reacted very negatively to that. They're like, "Oh, UFC finally has competition." I don't think that that's really going to be the case, but that was one of
Yeah.
them. But also, he mentioned that Vince could basically sell stock. Like, he didn't have to wait to sell his stock. So there was some hesitation, maybe like, oh, Vince could just get rid of all of, a lot of these shares. Maybe the stock is going to go down. So he did mention that. And so I reached out to Dave, and I was like, why would he throw Vince under the bus? Like, this doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense whatsoever to throw Vince under the bus. And so we talked about this on Friday. And then lo and behold, I think it was on Sunday, Dave and Brian talked about this. It may have been, actually may have been Wednesday. I don't remember exactly when they talked about it, but Dave says, the Vince creative thing. Triple H is head of creative. He has control. Vince McMahon is just an employee. When's the last time Vince was just an employee?
I mean, I don't know what that means though. Like he's on the board, isn't he?
He's on the board. He still has
Yeah.
his role as, his actual job, but it made it sound like whatever stature Vince has with Ari Emanuel, that has somewhat been disconnected, because originally Ari had said, if we have a discussion about the wrestling side, Vince wins. Like, he's the knowledgeable one. And it seems
Yeah.
like this is part of the wrestling side, which is who gets to be creative. And, actually, now I remember, Dave had actually written on Friday that that Triple H is running creative, and that Vince was out for now. And I was like, well, what does out for now mean? Can he come back at any time and push buttons, and he didn't know. And then I think it was on Sunday he said why Vince was it wasn't Vince's choice to be not as involved as he wanted to be. So that was so interesting to me. Do you think now there's been some theories? I don't know if these are conspiracy theories or not, but some theories that Ari sold Vince McMahon a bill of goods just to get this company.
I think that that always is the case, right? I mean, Vince is not the boss. He still has a lot of say in things in WWE, but he's not really the boss. And obviously, when he's 70 something years old, how much longer is he going to do this? And Ari kind of knows that. So I do find it interesting. I didn't expect him to be hands-on day to day with this merger. I didn't see that coming. I always thought that he would be given, some a board position or on the corporate side position, but really they would have to put in place all these different things. Listen, Ari lets Dana book UFC, and he's obviously letting Hunter do WWE, and I think that's the smart way to do it. That is the way it should be.
Okay, but what if Vince wants to be the creative? This to me says that Ari's like, nope, Triple H is best for this position, which isn't exactly how we heard that this was going to happen, that it was really going to be Vince's call.
Maybe he saw something he didn't like.
Okay,
maybe that's the reality of it. Maybe he got wind of something. I mean, something that Eric Bischoff said a very long time ago that I genuinely believe, right? Sometimes you're out of the loop, right?
Wait, you believe something that came out of Eric Bischoff's mouth?
Okay. Yes.
All right,
because you know why? The same people. I've heard the same thing from people at Warner. So this is
okay.
When you have a lot of news out there, when you have a lot of speculation happening, right? Ari's obviously not a wrestling fan, but he's also hearing a lot of the chatter, and there's a lot of people within the company that hear the chatter as well. If you're constantly hearing Vince McMahon is out of touch, and Hunter should be the head writer, and he should be the head booker, and he should be the one controlling this. At one point, you might listen to it if something goes awry. Maybe something went awry, and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe this guy isn't the one to do this."
That's a very interesting point because, one of the things about this situation with Ari Emanuel, and I don't know how closely you covered or you even saw what was going on, but the WWE and the Endeavor and the TKO stock price was a small part of this conversation. But the bigger news across Hollywood was this situation where he was pretty much lambasting the CAA guy, Brian Lord, by basically saying that because he believes that Brian Lord's company kind of brushed some things about Harvey Weinstein under the rug, which allowed Harvey Weinstein to just become this monster. And then he said, look, that's what they do, but we have morals. And people took him to task for that comment because they're like, how do you employ Dana White and Vince McMahon and say that you have morals? But that conversation came out of an attack on the other agency. And there was a piece in the Hollywood Reporter yesterday. I think this was actually an editorial. This wasn't really a reported piece, but the person who wrote it was like, a lot of people are like, dude, you are out of the agency business. You are a CEO. Stop, stop picking up the low-hanging fruit and actually be a boss. So those comments that he made were not, they created lots of headlines, but, maybe not great for what you believe that he is doing. Not great press, I guess I would say, for Endeavor and TKO, but yeah, this whole situation is fascinating because now Ari Emanuel is related to the wrestling business. Like, how crazy is that? That is amazing.
It's all nuts.
This is why I want Entourage. This is why I want Entourage to come back. Ari Gold, he puts this company together. Vince McMahon, and then he just pulls the rug underneath him. Like, I want to see that.
Well, I don't know. You know what? I think the sensationalness of this adds a lot more to it, right? Like, I think it's a nice little buzz story that Vince kind of got taken in this deal. But at the end of the day, he made $9 billion
Yeah.
on a $1 million investment over the last 35 years. So 40 years. So you know what? I don't feel so bad for Vince. I don't feel bad about any of it. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to what is the right move for the business, right? You
Yep.
can love Vince all you want, and he has all this insight with the business side of things. But I mean, if you are trying to cater to 18 to 35-year-old men or 18 to 48-year-old men, is a 70-something plus year old billionaire the one to create that captivating programming? I don't know. I'm sure there's an exception to the rule, and I'm sure there were a lot of people that said the same thing during the Attitude Era, but we also have to remember the times were very different in 2000, 98, 99, 2000. A lot of things were new. So the first time you do it, it's going to attract eyeballs. I think Vince, is he a great booker? Yeah, of course he is. Is he a great writer? Of course he is. He's the only one that survived. Professional wrestling did not survive. Vince McMahon's version of it did. And the reality is, unfortunately, okay, this is my opinion, not Garrett. Unfortunately, the reality is pro wrestling will not survive the test of time. Whatever Vince McMahon's version is will survive. Is that saying AEW is not going to evolve? No, I think AEW will stay, but obviously they're going to have to evolve. But what we grew up watching, that 1980s style, the early 90s style of wrestling, that's an outdated product to a 15-year-old kid now. So I think everything is evolution, and you got to keep it interesting. And that's why WWE's doing all this stuff with Logan Paul, and they're incorporating a lot of the pop culture crossovers. Do I like it? No. I want to watch my old man wrestling. I want to watch two fat dudes just in a 60-minute Broadway. That's what I like. But I know it's not about what I like or what I prefer. It's about whatever the better product is. And I think Ari's seeing that. I think he's seeing that, listen, Hunter's young. He's hungry. He has a very different vision. He's the right pick. I mean, there's no denying that Triple H is the future of that TV product. It's a matter of how involved is Vince going to be.
In my fantasy version of 2023 Entourage, it is Triple H in Ari's ear saying, like, the old man doesn't have it anymore, man. We got to move on beyond the old man. Now, I'm not saying that happened in real life, but that's just what I want to see.
I want to see that Thanksgiving. That's the Thanksgiving I want to see. That's the Entourage Thanksgiving episode where Vince
isn't eating turkey, though. Vince wants prime rib for his Thanksgiving. No turkey. Yeah, no turkey.
No.
So actually what you said about sort of the evolution of wrestling and whether AEW can do what they're doing or whether they have to evolve is a great thing. And we're going to talk about that very thing in a second here, because I think that's a great setup to that, because there was a lot of WWE in Collision this weekend that I wanted to talk to you about. But before that, there was another little piece of news related to wrestling coming out of that Bloomberg Live conference, Screen Time with Lucas Shaw. He also interviewed Bill Simmons. And Bill Simmons, who has been working with WWE, the Ringer and WWE are partners in some sense. I don't know what the partnership exactly looks like today, but they've been working on this Vince McMahon documentary. Now, there were two Vince projects from what we understood. There was this Ringer Films Vince McMahon thing. I think that is supposed to be for Netflix. And then there was this other docudrama thing, which was like the U.S. versus Vince McMahon. And this like super, the OJ docudrama, which was very well done. With Cuba Gooding Jr. playing OJ, and Malcolm Jamal Warner, my guy Theo Huxtable, was playing Al Cowlings, which was very fun. And I think a Vince McMahon version of that would have been very fun too. But I don't hear anything about that anymore, so I'm guessing that was scrapped. But this documentary, which I think was originally going to be like a 4-parter, it sounds like that is still a go. And Bill said that there had been lots of start and stops on it. But ultimately, what came out of that is that while Vince will get to see clips of the doc, he does not have final say on the final cut of this documentary. So whenever we get this thing, now the Ringer also helped with the Andre the Giant documentary, and there was still lots of, fantasy Andre stuff, which is part of the fun, which is what people wanted. So I imagine there will be still some, taller tales that have been told by WWE that people just hang on to when it comes to Vince. But this may actually be a much more honest portrayal of who he is in a documentary sense, that he doesn't actually have the final say in this thing, which is fascinating to me. Do you think that this could be do you think that they will go down at the end and really, a lot of the stuff in the last 5 years coming out about him has been really, really negative?
Sorry, my mic was off. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to take that leap. Obviously, if you're looking to tell the real story, you would have to incorporate all of that stuff. You're going to have to put in all those bad stories you've heard. I don't know how you do a proper documentary without being totally, unbiased and not hiding stuff. But, everybody's connected in media. Everybody's connected in this business. And it's not about upsetting Vince McMahon. It's about upsetting someone else that might be upset by what you said about Vince McMahon. So I have no idea if anybody's going to take the risk to do something like that. Generally, it only happens when you're public enemy number one unanimously. So I don't... Listen, I would be shocked if it was a very open discussion about the things that he's done. Do I expect it to be that? No. I think it's just going to be... listen, Vice, why hasn't Vice done it, right? Dark Side of the Ring.
They did.
Why haven't they done it?
They did that terrible one. No.
Terrible.
They had... The steroid trial one was actually pretty fun, I thought. But they did a documentary on Vince. It was really bad. It was all just clipped material from previous Dark Sides.
Yeah.
And it was not good at all. So much so that I had talked to somebody who had some knowledge of the project kind of before it got going. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, this thing was really bad." So even people closer to that than us were like, "This thing was not good." So that's really the only thing that we have, and I'm very thankful that we're not. Maybe we will get a Peacock version of this story, but I hope not. I hope we don't get a Peacock version of this story, because can you imagine the WWE Network version of the Vince McMahon story? Oh my gosh!
Oh, he's God.
Yeah.
That would be it, right?
Yeah.
He hatched from an egg, and here was Vince in his full form.
Yeah.
Totally. I listen. He hatched like a Pokemon. Thank you.
No, God. Like the gobbledygooker.
The gobbledygooker. I don't. I've been bamboozled so many times from some of these documentaries that I've seen. There's a couple big documentaries that came out over the last couple of years, and I watched the documentary. And, the first one I was like, I don't want to name the documentary because it'll get into a thing. But like a couple of these, I watched it and I was like, wow, I can't believe what happened here. And then you start reading and you start researching and you find out like, oh, a lot of this is like, director's bias here. They're telling the story they want to tell. I don't know when it comes to Vince, anybody has the balls to do it. Because generally people that are doing these documentaries are involving people from wrestling and they're wrestling fans. So how are you going to tell a Vince McMahon story without having any knowledge of wrestling and without having a bias? So I don't know if it would be possible, but I would love, I'm waiting for that autobiography. I want to know what he thinks of himself.
Yeah. The Vince book that came out last year, the year before, was not fantastic. I didn't really like it. The thing, so I know, you're not necessarily a Bill Simmons guy, but one thing that Bill Simmons always says is he's like, when it comes to these sports movies, they need to hire me to make sure these sports scenes look believable, or to make sure these games that they are trying to recreate are believable. And he likes to say that he should be the sports czar. He had always said, I want President Obama to create a position called the sports czar so I could help make these decisions. The fact that he doesn't use Meltzer on this stuff is fascinating to me. Like, he was a subscriber to Meltzer. He used to Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons, yeah.
Okay. So he said when he was younger, the time that he had to stop subscribing was when he felt the need to hide the Observer inside of a magazine when he was around his girlfriend.
It's like a nudie mag.
Exactly. So, I mean, he was he goes to WWE wrestling. He goes back to like the late 70s because that's when he was age wise. So Bob Backlund and guys like that. And he sees Hulkamania coming and everything. But the fact that like he was a subscriber to Dave and that he doesn't use Dave on this stuff is just so weird to me. And I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that they've got their own Ring of Wrestling podcasting. They have the Masked Man, who's kind of like their version of Dave. And so I wonder if there's probably something there where that's like we can't bring over somebody because we got our own top guy there. But just the fact that we're doing this Vince McMahon documentary, and you're not. Maybe they will bring in Dave, or maybe they have asked him questions. I haven't really talked to Dave about it, but it would that this is the guy who knows Vince McMahon's story better than anybody, and so I hope Dave has some sort of commentary on it.
Yeah, listen, Dave is one of the greatest pro wrestling historians we've ever had. There's nobody that has been able to document professional wrestling for the last 40 years every single week and to be on top of it. How do you not use him as a reference point? I don't know. But like you said, everybody has a reason, right? They have an agenda.
Do you know that Dave wrote, I think, one piece for Grantland? So the Ringer is Bill Simmons' current website. When he worked for ESPN, there was a website called Grantland, and that was basically Bill's baby. Dave wrote a story on Alistair Overeem for Grantland, and I think he was unhappy with the way that it was edited because they wanted to keep things in the article that may not have been factually correct, and he was kind of struggling with that. So there is a little bit of a relationship there, but I don't know. Maybe it didn't end on a good note or something. Okay, there's your Dave Meltzer history lesson for the day. Okay, so we got to see some pretty good WWE shows over the last few days. Raw had their season premiere last night.
Really good show.
Thought it was completely fun. It was actually way better than Fastlane, I thought, which was their PLE from a couple weeks ago. And they also had SmackDown, the return of Roman Reigns, and they are setting up. Are you ready for this match, Andrew? LA Knight and Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel? Are we ready for the LA Knight movement here? And are we ready for him to take a L? That's because that's what's coming.
Yeah, he's going to have to. Yeah, he's going to have to because Roman is about to beat Bruno's second title reign record.
Uh-oh.
I think it's like 12. It's like 1,248 days, something like that. I think he's approaching. No. He's like 100 days shy. Right? WWE title.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I got to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. And I'm not going to that propagous website of WWE to tell me the time frame. Let's see. Reigns. All right.
So Bruno's second reign, according to Wikipedia, the great Wikipedia, says it's at 1,237 days.
Yeah. 1,237. The following one is 1,470, and that's Backlund's. And then you're at 1,474. You got to break Hogan's.
Yeah.
I mean, do you at this point, do you just put the title on him for another 1,000 days and just be like, let's just change this whole thing?
Well, if you're going to call him the GOAT, he might as well be the GOAT, well, right? But
yeah,
but the poor folks who are challenging for this belt and have to keep losing. That's not fantastic for sure. But yeah, this is something that they have to kind of figure out what they want. Do you want him to be the Hulk Hogan? Do you want him to? It's too bad they, like when Bill Goldberg's second streak and the Sid Vicious streak in WCW, they just kept like adding numbers to it, like it wasn't like real.
The Millennium Man streak,
yeah, like and maybe at some point they just say that Roman already broke Hogan's streak, just because they like to create their own. There's revisionist history all over WWE, so they just make it up. Just go, 2,000 days as champion, Roman Reigns, and you'll have all of those WWE apologists just start tweeting about it. Then it goes viral, and that's all they need.
They should add a day every couple months.
Yeah. see people
You'll eventually
notice.
even out. Yeah. See if they notice.
That would be hilarious.
Listen, you could incorporate a leap year too. Just add in extra months, add in days.
All the times that Roman had to fly cross country and back, you add like 3 days.
Hogan math.
Yeah.
See?
There you
Hogan
go.
math.
Exactly. But what did you think of SmackDown? I was, when Roman is not on that show, it is still generally a decent pro wrestling show. But when he is on that show, it just feels bigger. It feels more special. I think he's such a great performer right now. He was so entertaining to me on this television show.
They did a good job at creating opponents for him, and this is something that we were talking about months ago, and was like, okay, well, who's going to face who's facing him? If Cody's not, Cody didn't beat him, who are his opponents? And there really haven't been any because he hasn't defended the title in months, but you have John Cena. You could go back to that for one more time. You got Cody lingering there. You have Jimmy Uso again lingering there. You could do something with Kevin Owens since he's on SmackDown. You have LA Knight now. You have a lot of moving parts here, and which I like. I like the unknown. You know what is interesting though? Like LA Knight is such a great character, but Roman is on such a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't felt that about. Just like in the ring, like he's great. LA Knight is great. Could he be a WWE champion? Sure, of course he can be. But can I believably think that he has any kind of positioning to beat him? No.
Yeah, that's that is going to be the problem with this match. And then how do you keep him completely hot? Like, do you have him lose via Solo coming in and then still be the one to lay Roman out at the end of the show, and it's actually him standing tall instead of Roman? I don't know. It's going to be, Triple H has got his creative juices flowing. I'm sure he's going to really, really have to have a good out here for LA Knight. Did you see, if you can think back, and we've talked about this before, but did you actually see LA Knight getting to this level?
I've always liked the character. He has something for sure. Did I have confidence that WWE would be able to present it on TV the way that they have been doing? No, I didn't. That I didn't think. But he's in the mix. He wrestles a very different style too. Like when you watch him wrestle, it's almost like a throwback a little bit. There's no
I mean, the entire character is an Attitude Era character. It is The Rock and Stone Cold and the best of both guys. So for us, it's like
also Ricky. Also Ricky is an Attitude Era character apparently.
Yeah, I guess. I can't believe Adam Copeland used that terminology to describe him, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. It wasn't his fault, and I'll tell you why. I don't blame him.
Okay,
but I think for LA Knight, I would like to see the U.S. title on him. I'd like to see the IC title on him. If you're not going to have him be the main guy, you have a great upper middle card IC champion or U.S. champion. But WWE's smart. They're realizing that the money is in guys like Jake Paul or Logan Paul, and they're gonna put that title on him.
You think you're gonna put the world title on Logan Paul?
No, a U.S. title. U.S. title. But you know what? I'm telling you, if Roman was not holding that title for the length that he has, I think it would be a way more discussed topic of putting that title on Logan Paul if Roman wasn't doing this unbelievable run that he's doing. How do you not? Why wouldn't you? Right? Like, I'm thinking if I'm Endeavor, why wouldn't I want to put this title on? Obviously he's a pop culture celebrity, but he's also in the fight game, sport.
Beating jiu-jitsu players.
Yeah, that was a wacky wacky boxing fight last weekend. I don't he gets a lot of crap. Like, they're like, oh, people are like, oh, this is embarrassing. He's such an embarrassment to boxing. I'm like, I think he's a decent boxer. He's not terrible.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's not Floyd. He's not beating, a real contender.
No,
Or maybe he will. I don't know. But they're both talented.
Out of the celeb boxing regime, he and his brother are completely fine.
The best.
You know, and they're self-marketers, so they understand that part, which is the bigger part of the game than the actual high-level boxing is, because you can see that they are making more money than some of the highest level boxers that are out there. But what was I? Oh, did you? By the way, did you hear about Showtime Sports and Showtime Boxing being canceled?
No.
Yeah, I'm so sad. Not that I was a giant Showtime Boxing fan of late. I missed a lot of their shows, though. I know Tim Tszyu won the other night, and Tim Tszyu is a good fighter. But yeah, they're getting out of the business, and I don't know what that means.
There's
for
no more
Steven
HBO
Espinoza.
boxing.
No more HBO.
There's no more HBO boxing. There's no more Showtime boxing. I guess it's DAZN.
It's DAZN. It's Fox. It's Premier Championship. I think that's about it. And obviously Top Rank with Bob Arum. They're on ESPN.
Yeah,
but
no more programming. By the way, 37 years Showtime boxing.
When Mike Tyson, he made the move from HBO to Showtime, that was a really, really big deal. I think Tyson and Lennox Lewis, when Tyson was near the end of his reign, Lennox Lewis was much better than Tyson at this point. I think that did like 1.6 million buys or something on Showtime, really? Some crazy number like that. Yeah, so unfortunately, RIP
very
Showtime.
Unfortunate. Lennox Lewis, very boring defensive fighter. Never got into Lennox Lewis. Never liked his fighting style. I was way more of a Holyfield fan if you were going on that top tier. 1990s, late 80s to late 90s heavyweight boxing. There's nothing better.
It's awesome.
Nothing better. It was unbelievable.
My boxing fandom was from like the mid 80s to the mid 90s. My hardest of hardcore boxing fandom, and then I got back into it big time with De La Hoya and Mayweather and stuff. But you know the story of Lennox Lewis and Brock Lesnar, right?
No.
So they were going to put a fight together, and this is when Brock was WWE.
Where, like K1?
Yeah, this was the early 2000s WWE, and they were going to do a match with Lennox Lewis and Brock Lesnar. And then I think obviously once Lennox Lewis figured out that, it wasn't going to be this fake fight and that he was actually going to have to stop a takedown. He's like, "No, I'm good." Like this is not.
What kind of match were they going to do? I don't remember this at all. They were going to do like a boxing match, or they were going to do like a shoot match?
I think there was negotiations as far as what was going to happen. I think I want to say on the undercard was supposed to be like Michael Moore against Kurt Angle or something like that. But there was this grandiose idea. Yeah, Dave's written about it. If you search some of the observers, he's totally written about it.
I remember the Tyson going to K1 deal.
What about Tyson Hogan?
Or Tyson and Pride? Tyson Hogan, I remember hearing. Yeah, well, Hulk Hogan, he body slammed Mike Tyson and won the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship.
Okay. So
Don King represented him.
So I think all of the folks who are our age know the story, but in right before Tyson faces Buster Douglas in Japan, he signs on to be the special guest referee of Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. It was actually, I think it was a Friday night main event. It was just the main event. It wasn't the Saturday night main event. And so I'm a little kid and I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, I'm in. Tyson's probably beating Buster. But what if he loses? Like, then what do? You've been promoting this Mike Tyson thing, like, for a little while. Yeah. And then he goes and loses. And I was so bummed because I was like, can they get Buster? Like, are they going to bring Buster in? Is he going to be the guy?
They did.
And I from the boxing fan standpoint, I was probably one of the few who even cared about what was supposed to happen on WWE TV. And then they have him. And then he throws the right hand, knocks out Randy Savage. I think that's the last knockout of his career, man, because he went down right after.
Yeah. Buster Douglas was not a. I think that's a story where Bruce had to run to the airport to like get Buster Douglas to like see if he would do it because they had no time, right? Isn't that the story?
I've heard some stories.
Was chasing this man.
I've heard some stories about that. I've also heard a story. Now, this is Bruce Pritchard, so this is Bruce Pritchard storytelling. I heard a story that Bruce was supposed to go on vacation, and when Tyson lost to Buster, Vince was like, "You're not going on vacation anymore. We got work to
I
do."
can see that. You know what? I believe Bruce. In speaking to people in that company regularly, I believe Bruce 100%. Yeah. I was talking to someone and they're like, I was like, do you guys get like, what's your vacation like? You know? And he's like, everybody gets the same type of vacation. I was like, do you guys take it? He's like, no. I'm like, so like you can't, do you ever go away for like 2 weeks? Like, do you take like a 1 week vacation? And he's like, what are you, nuts? Because he's like, you think Vince is taking a 2 week? You think Nick and Vince go on these vacations? I was like, I don't know. I'm asking. He's like, no. You could take time off. You could do stuff, but you are not disappearing for a week and a half. I was like, I feel it.
It's unfortunate.
It's like me. I can't disappear.
It might be better for them to be able to take some time off and refresh and come back. I imagine there's pretty high burnout in that sort of environment. Yeah. All right. So on Raw, we had a pretty fun storyline and a really good match with Judgment Day getting their titles back against Cody and Jey Uso, with Jimmy coming out to help the heels win, which it seems like maybe they're setting up Jimmy versus Jey for WrestleMania. That's kind of what I got out of that. But I also felt it was a little bit of a ripoff to have them win the belts at Fastlane and then just lose them so quickly. I was like, that just makes that Fastlane show just completely meaningless now. But when I was watching Raw, because I was watching Roman and I loved Roman in the segment with Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, "Oh yeah, I called an audible, Oos," and he's like, "You called an audible," and then Roman started bringing up like actual football terms. He's like, starts bringing up hot routes and all this stuff. I really love it when Roman kind of digs into his character and lets his personality shine. On the other side, I'm watching Raw, and I had this thought. And I wanted to hear what you think about this. In 2024, if Damian Priest does not hold one of the world titles, we're doing something wrong here, because that dude is awesome.
Yeah. What do you think they're going to end up doing with him?
Well, he's obviously on this slow burn of turning babyface. I would actually like Judgment Day to go babyface as a group, and maybe Rhea does her own thing, because I think if you take out Priest, you've taken out the heavy, and then you have a bunch of small guys, and which makes them less kind of intimidating. Like Priest is like, Priest is the guy in the at the end of the video game. He's like the big boss who just has his arms crossed. He's like, okay, you got through those guys, but now you got to get through me.
Yeah. And
maybe that's just Rhea, but Rhea can't fight men, so that makes it a little bit harder. But so I would, I think he's going to turn babyface. The thing about it, the cash in is, I don't want him to cash in as a babyface. I kind of want the cash in to maybe be the reason he turns babyface. Like Finn is just too jealous or something, and he screws it up and he loses the briefcase. Whatever that is, I want him to turn babyface, whether he beats Seth, whether he beats Sammy, whether he beats Drew, whoever is that Raw champion, or that the new belt that they have. I just want to see him with a title, because I think he's maybe the I guess there's so many underrated people in both companies, but he's one of the more underrated folks, I think, as far as the value that he brings to that show. Yeah.
Oh, he's fantastic. His story of a local independent wrestler in New York to ROH to becoming
Punishment Martinez.
Punishment Martinez. I saw him wrestle a billion times. I like him as a heel. I think he's a really strong heel, but he's very likable. He has a likable face, great smile. Goes a long way. I would like. I don't know how they do it, but I mean, him as WWE champion would be fantastic. I would love to see that. Like, I'm not against it, and I don't want to just see it just for like my own amusement. I think it's a positive. It's something very different that you're doing. You want a Latin star. This dude is a Latin star. You look at him and he's a star. So, you have something there. I kind of like the teasing about Drew McIntyre joining, right? That was
Mhm.
kind of the tease here. And there was a great line. I think it was Seth. Yeah, it was Seth that said it to Drew, essentially like, hey, listen, you got to stop making excuses. Maybe you're the problem. You know, you
Yeah.
blame everybody else. You're blaming the bloodline. You're blaming
yeah.
other people. But also, do you know what the behind story to that is? The real story? The real
About
story was
Drew?
playing on, about Drew. It was playing into the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Drew's biggest failure was not his. Drew did everything right. It's just the universe decided that it was going to mess with you.
Yeah, totally.
And the world shut down. And that killed the momentum that guy had. And he would, I love to picture this in my head. I do this all the time, and it's very unhealthy. But I always like to do like a fork in the road. And I like to envision what the other alternate universe would have been like if a decision was made. I do that with my personal life all the time, whenever I'm making an important decision. I think for Drew, that's the moment, right? Like, no pandemic happens. He beats Brock Lesnar WrestleMania in 2020, and he has this great world championship run. But that didn't happen. But a lot of people keep saying that in WWE. Not so much Drew. He's not moping around or anything. Don't take it that way. But there's a lot.
But some of this has to do with
conversation.
his leverage, right? With his leverage because of the contract and everything.
Yes, it has to do
If
with the
if
leverage
you
also.
if you are bargaining against Drew McIntyre and you are saying, I know you think you're worth this, but maybe you're not worth this because we did have this hard time and you were in the pandemic and you were the champion and it didn't really help. Like, even if that's a little bit dishonest, like that would be a bargaining chip for the company against him, which could mean that that would bother me if that was the case.
That would too. I think there's a lot of moving parts here. I do like the Judgment Day. I don't want them to break up. I like them as this heel faction that people like. Or maybe they just keep growing it. Turn them into the Ministry. You get them big robes. Who's the higher power? Let's find a higher power.
We know who the higher power is. It's Ari Emanuel. He just told us.
It's Ari Emanuel. It's me, Vince. It's been me all along.
Okay, you kind of opened up this box of, or this whole thing of worms here. You said when you make decisions, you try to look at the fork in the road, the opposite. I'm assuming, like, what's the worst case scenario here? Is that how you look at things?
I do this all the time. Like, this is really part of my thought process. If it's an important decision, right? I will always think of, I don't think about today's decision. I'm thinking, okay, 20 days from now, how am I impacted by this? Or 30 days from now, how am I impacted by this decision I'm going to make? And I create this fork in the road in my head, and I play out the pros and cons of both decisions. So I essentially see the alternate version of whatever I was planning on doing. Right now, I'm contemplating, do I buy a Corvette for my 40th birthday? That is the fork in the road I'm looking at. I'm not even kidding you. This was my discussion. Do I go full-blown midlife crisis at 40 and I get a Corvette, or do I act like a normal human being and I get a car that's suitable for me and my family?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if when you have these decisions and you're thinking like, oh, it could go this way or it could go this way, does it ever go to where you're like, my life just became like a Chippendales dancer or something? Like, is that how far down the fork you can go sometimes?
Well, here's a good one, right? During the pandemic, I bought a bunch of Dogecoin. Okay.
Oh yes,
Everybody told me I was a fool. Everybody told me I was a fool to do this, and I did very, very well with it. Okay, and I sold everything. I did it, and I'm done.
No Doge anymore.
I still have like 100,000 shares. I'm not
okay,
but it's like pennies,
Yeah.
One day, we could all retire. That thing hits $100. That's it, Garrett. We're buying the Observer.
Yeah,
it's gonna be me. Andrew Zarian presents the Wrestling Observer. That would be awesome. A nightmare. But that
no more video paywall, like, everybody. That's decision number 1 on the Andrew Zarian.
No. Everything is a paywall. Every time you put in the website, we charge you. That's the new model. That's 5 cents. 4. That's 4 cents. But like you kind of have to look at things like this, right? And I do with
Sure.
wrestling that happens a ton. Like I love to do that with wrestling because it brings up these, like what if CM Punk didn't become a cuckoo man and decide to lose his mind, right? Like where would we be? There's a lot of these moments. What if Brett never left? What if so many of these that you could do.
Yeah.
I like that. I like alternate history. I like to know about things, just other ways things could kind of played out. And I use that for wrestling. And I think for Drew, that's really the big story here.
He should get another run. Absolutely, 100%. His run it's unfortunate for the timing. He definitely should get another run. By the way, did you see the movie Dumb Money?
No.
Just came out. It's about the GameStop stock or the GameSpot stock.
Dumb Money. Yeah. Okay.
It's really good.
I
think you would really like
AMC or GameStop?
GameStop.
GameStop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I didn't do those. I didn't do AMC or GameStop. I should have.
The meme stocks.
Yeah. I didn't do. Well, I did Doge, but that was it.
Yeah. No, I think you'd really like it. It's a really fun movie. All right. Before we get out of here, we got a little bit over 10 minutes left. I wanted to get your thoughts on sort of the Tuesday Night War, but also what I saw out of Collision, which I found very interesting. Tuesday Night War, we saw 2 pretty darn good wrestling shows. My thought coming out of both shows was that if you love AEW and you hate WWE, that was not going to change your mind. And if you loved NXT/WWE and you hate AEW, their show was not going to change your mind either. But if you liked both shows, it was a good night to watch wrestling. At the same time, I don't ever want them to do that again. Maybe once a year, because I watched them side by side. I tried to do the old Raw Nitro thing from back in the day, and that was tough because then I had to rewatch stuff that I wanted to make sure that I got the full gist of. But maybe once in a year because of baseball playoffs, we've got to do that. Fine, so be it. But if these two companies think that with the TV negotiations and such going on, that it is best for the business to go head to head, please do not do that. It's too much. If you're a wrestling fan, it's just too much. But overall, what did you think of both shows?
I was into it. I was into the head to head. I liked the. Listen, I liked what AEW did. But there was no way they were beating them. It was impossible. You're on a different night. You're going up against John Cena. It's over. Like you're not winning. But I thought both shows were fun shows. AEW was a better show in my opinion, as far as the wrestling went and the progress. And NXT was let's get the biggest number we can. I know a lot of people wanted 1 million viewers there. And I think that had to do with what Tony was saying. I think he got
Tony was based on his tweets. He was desperately hoping they got under 1 million,
and they did. Yeah. He probably spoke to similar people that I had spoken to or heard the same stuff. But the goal was to hit 1 million for this show.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted. USA people within USA were very much convinced that they would do 1 million. They came as close as they could. I mean, if AEW wasn't on, of course they would have done 1 million views. Tony kind of losing it also on social media was an interesting piece to the story here, but he used it as a strategy to promote other events. I think they were both fine shows. I'm very disconnected from the NXT product because I can't commit to it every week.
Yep.
So it's a whole new product. It's not bad at all. I think it's a really good product. I think they kind of figured it out now after that whole NXT 2.0 nonsense. I think now they're kind of in something here. But you're gonna bring John Cena down there. You have Becky down there. You had Asuka down there. You had Undertaker show up at the end.
LA Knight,
plus everybody else. LA Knight, Paul Heyman. Everybody was there. So of course they're gonna do a monster number.
Yeah, no, it was fun, but again, let's save it for that once a year, and no one get any bright ideas about this. Okay, so now Collision happened on Saturday, And I had
Yes.
heard some stuff from some folks before I even got a chance to watch the show. And the immediate feedback to me was, what in the blue hell was that WWE opening segment on Collision? They didn't do the Saturday night main event open. They went right
No.
into the ring and had all these guys come in. And then this thing goes way sideways because Ricky Starks and Edge kind of start going into business for themselves. I don't know if they were pissed off at each other or they Edge got caught off guard. Ricky was being a dick. I really don't know, what happened there. But you said you may have some information about what happened.
I say that you just broke up in my headset halfway
I
through
said
that.
you said you might have some information about what happened between Ricky Starks and Edge.
I thought that was bizarre.
Yeah.
It seems like they got a little hot at each other. If it was planned, I would think that was very well done to create drama between the two. Um, the bug eye comment was very aggressive,
Yeah.
and
And that
if I'm,
it
I'm
looks like
standing,
it set off Edge too.
it
A
did,
little
it
bit.
did. And he's like, "No, I'm looking at your stupid shirt," and then he said something to him, and he's like, "Yeah, you look like the freaking Rock," and then he called him the Kevin Nash line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think what happened, he got possessed by the ghosts of Kevin Nash in WCW, and it just came out,
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I think that was a total burial of Ricky. You
Yeah.
pointed out the worst attributes of his character to people. He is the Rock like. He is influenced by that. And then you have the 6'5" giant Hall of Famer telling you that you suck. And not in a wrestling way, like in a real way. I don't think that worked.
No.
I don't like to see that. I don't.
So-
This whole shooting thing, I don't like.
So on the Fight Game podcast, and this is going back months, my co-host John LaRocca, he's got some friends in both companies, and he was saying, he's like, look, I get it. AEW, Edge could be helpful. Great wrestler, great promo. But you also have to think of the idea, and some of this is me putting into words what John was saying. I'm just trying to make it so that people kind of have some context. But he was essentially saying, when you are that big of a star coming from the other company, your impetus is kind of going to be that big of a star in the new company. Like it's kind of a rebirth for him, right? And some of that may not always be doing what is best for the younger wrestler. Some of that is going to be doing what is best for the former Edge and the current Adam Copeland. And I think what he was saying is like, look, you have a guy who has been in that WWE locker room for all of these years. He is the master at any game to be played. And you just have to be careful with what, with bringing in these kind of wrestlers who are giant stars coming, from, if you're like a Bryan Danielson, who's just like, look, I just want to make wrestling better. Like that's my ultimate goal. Yeah. That is a very selfless thing. Not everybody is like that. So he made that comment, and I kind of just kept it in the back of my mind. And that was the first time that, at least on screen, that I was like, he may have something here. Now, maybe they discussed it in the back. Maybe they apologized, like, sorry, my bad, whatever. But still, like you said, it came off as an absolute burial of somebody who I would rather see pushed highly over an ex-WWE guy coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. That whole thing was weird. The interaction was weird. Listen, they're at a weird turning point now. So I don't know why they didn't do the Saturday night's main event open. That was
going to be so much talking in the first segment, is my guess.
I guess so. So I guess maybe it was a time thing, but I'm curious to see what Edge does, because you're going to eventually have to put him in a main positioning, in some sort of major program. Who do you think he works with? Is it Kenny? Is it? I don't want to see him in Jericho. That's an easy thing after Edge, after Christian.
Yeah.
Adam Copeland. We have to say it 3 times.
Yeah.
Or else we got a strike from WWE. Adam Copeland, Adam Copeland, Adam Copeland.
Well, Dave already screwed it up because he got Cole and Copeland confused in the newsletter one time at least already. So it's going to be hard for everybody.
Yeah.
So
gonna be very hard.
we have a couple minutes left, and the one thing that I didn't actually ask you about, because I'm sure you've already had your thoughts on this on Matt Men and on Observer Live and stuff, but um, this MJF segment from Dynamite, they touched
Yeah.
on a very hot topic based off of what happened on Collision. It seems like they may have been already pulling away slightly from it. Maybe they understood that the way that they did it on Dynamite wasn't wasn't the right way to do it or whatever. And maybe not. Maybe I'm just looking to find things that I want to see. But do you think they could pull off a very sensitive angle like this on a pro wrestling television show?
Uh, the key is on a pro wrestling television show, and some of this has to do. And I know what Max is trying to do. He's trying to tell a very important story to him, right? That's
Yes.
the story. It's unbelievably unfortunate what's happening right now, and with I will tell you a story off the air that I experienced yesterday, and it speaks volumes to where we are in the world right now. It's absolutely terrible, but for Max, it's really important, and he's told the story how he was harassed, he was bothered as a teenager in middle school because he was Jewish. That's a very important story to tell, and I think people need to know that story. Whether or not pro wrestling fans will be able to grasp something so serious in a pro wrestling business, I don't know. I don't, a lot of it has to do with how you're laying it out. Would I have done that with the week that we had? No, absolutely not. I would have stayed far, far, far away from it. But it's Max's story, and he feels that he needs to tell the story to show. Listen, the way that you felt, how uncomfortable you felt, is a good reflection of imagine what it was like for me when it actually happened to me.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm not going to tell someone not to be offended. If you're Jewish and you're offended by it, you have all the right to be. If you're not Jewish and you're offended, you have all the right to be. And if you're not offended, that's also fine too. I was watching it, and I'm thinking, well, he does do the roll of quarters, that's his thing, right? But I mean, there's a lot that you could not do because of what's going on. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was an oversight. I don't know. Maybe they thought that it would be a good time to represent this, to show people, listen, this stuff is going on in the world. Anti-Semitism is rampant right now. Maybe this is something that we could show and create a story of. The problem is, it's pro wrestling. The audience is not conditioned to think that way.
Yeah.
Every time they have attempted to do a serious story reflecting around the world's events, it doesn't do well.
Because it's a work. It's supposed to be
a work. It's supposed to. Yeah. So listen, for Max's case, I would love for this story to be told in a great way. I don't know if the story was there, and I don't know if the timing was right. Obviously the timing was not right. Let me just say that. I 100%, I think the timing was terrible for this. But
yeah.
They could continue it in a way, and they could play off of it. I don't like that. I like to watch wrestling to get away from this. I don't watch television during a pandemic era. I totally stopped TV. I couldn't do it anymore because I don't want real world events reflecting on my television show. I need to escape it. I'm living hell on earth to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't want to live it on TV. So I don't know. I didn't really go into it. I don't know. It didn't bother me because I was able to look past what I was able to look past what was on the surface, and I understood the story that Max was trying to say. And for his sake, I wanted it to work.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I know we only have a minute left here, but I wanted to mention, because this is just what I do, but Juice Robinson being the antagonist in this story is setting himself up for what I would like to trademark, the Jamie Walters corollary. Now, who is Jamie Walters? I think it's like season 4 of Beverly Hills 90210.
Okay.
Jamie Walters, who is in a pop music group called The Heights. He has a song called How Can You Talk to an Angel? Pretty famous song for the time frame. And he is Donna Martin's boyfriend on the season of Beverly Hills 90210.
Donna's boyfriend?
It turns out that his character goes a little bit to the possessive dark side and becomes a abusive boyfriend.
Oh my God, I remember this.
He accidentally throws her down a flight of stairs, and it turns out he's got to then get help, and he tries to get help, and so they're telling the story of the abusive boyfriend. This actually ruins this brother's career in real life. Now he made something
because he
of
played
himself
such a heinous person.
because he played such a heinous person, and the people, you can't touch this guy anymore because he's just napalm. And so he basically has to recreate his career, and he becomes a firefighter. And I'm sure he did good things as a human. But yeah, that character, the Jamie Walters, Ray Pruitt with one T because his mom couldn't afford the other T. That's how poor they were. His acting career was essentially done because of this character. So I don't think that people take wrestling that seriously as people may have taken Beverly Hills 90210 in 1994. But that is, I don't know if I was Juice, I don't know I would have been okay being the antagonist.
Well, the ring was a better change on Collision.
And that's what I meant of them going to the ring. So, anyways,
yeah, I don't want to see any of it. I don't want to see any of it depicted on TV. If it's on, whatever, I'll watch it. But we're in probably the worst time in recent history right now. So I kind of want to have fun when I'm watching wrestling. I want to escape this, but I think it's an important story to tell, and I think it's an important thing for Max. And I think it's good that he's able to kind of have this expression on television and tell the story. But he did a thing with Robert Kraft. When was it?
Yes.
Saturday, Friday, whenever it was. This means something to him, and it should.
Yes.
And I get it, but you're watching it, you're online, you don't know the story, you don't know really what Max is about, you don't know what Juice is about. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna, it becomes a vacuum of just tweets that people are just putting out there, and that's not the real world. I think we'll see how they do this, but I think they'll adjust it a little bit.
By the way, I want to apologize for using the word napalm, which was kind of insensitive based on what is going on in the world today. So I didn't even think about that until after I said it. So
I didn't even think about it when you said it either.
Yeah, just want to be careful, want to be sensitive to what everyone is going through right now. Okay, so that is going to be it. We went a couple minutes overtime here. I don't think Lance comes after us anymore, so that's why we don't get the nasty tweets. But want to thank producer John, as always, for being the man behind the boards. Obviously, thanks to Andrew. This is a very fun show for us to do together. I think you can tell by how well we get along and how much we have fun. So I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.